Okay, this is Mike Gettinger with the National Weather Service, here to do your weekly briefing for the next 7 days. And really the main concern or the only real concern over the next week is fire weather. We'll talk mostly about that. Sunday has the greatest fire weather potential. We might need red flags for Sunday from the looks of it early on here. It doesn't look like a crazy burn down the entire panhandle day, but certainly looks like we may be hitting red flag criteria. We do get a cold front late Sunday, so we'll be cool down there after some warm temperatures here to end this week. Will be cooler or beginning part of next week. No rain in sight. Drought's been expanding, continues to expand. Fuels are drying rapidly. All bad news on that front. So looking ahead here to this week, of course the phone's going to ring because I'm in operations and that's how it works. But it should be. I go back to the beginning. All right, so we will start over. Mike Gettinger with National Weather Service for your weekly weather briefing. And hopefully you can see my screen now. Again, fire weather is the only concern over the next week. Sunday has the greatest potential. We may need red flags for Sunday. It doesn't look like a horribly bad fire weather day, but certainly has potential for red flag warnings. Cold front late Sunday after several more days of warmth. And so it'll be cooler to start next week. No rain in sight. Drought is expanding. Fuels are drying rapidly. So looking at the matrix, we're having an elevated day going on today. Marginally, kind of a little bit of an elevated day tomorrow in the east mainly. Weaker winds on Saturday. Then we get this low pressure system on Sunday ahead of the cold front that will crank up the winds a little bit. And then we get that front end. And so maybe we start having more issues again as we get to Wednesday. It's a little too early to say, but those question marks in there. So here's what we got for today. So this is kind of an elevated condition. You can kind of see the area highlighted in the map. That's very wind dependent. That might be a little more broad of a threat than what's showing there. But generally in that yellow area, you've got southwest winds of 15 to 25 miles an hour. Relative humidity, probably 10 to 15% in the area highlighted in yellow. Most of the area be 10 to 20% today. So tomorrow, we have a little bit of some areas barely showing up on the map. It might be a little more expansive. So I kind of highlighted a little larger area. We're going to have a weak little trough come into the area. And with that, near that trough, the winds are going to be pretty weak actually. But just to the east of it, the winds will be 10 to 20 miles an hour. And so just that little area where the winds are a little stronger, but the relative humidity is lower in that 10 to 15% range, we'll have an elevated threat there. As you get far enough southeast, the winds will be stronger, but the relative humidity won't be as low if you get into the far southeast corner there. So it's kind of that area highlighted in yellow that has a little bit of an elevated look to it. So as we get to Sunday, this again, the biggest day in this area of critical may expand. Now keep in mind, this is the graphics here were just showing the red flag threat index, which is purely a combination of relative humidity and wind combination. It does not take fuel into account. And so we do take fuels into account for doing a red flag warning. So I'm going to show a little bit more of the areas that are the driest here in a minute, but that area of critical may be a little larger. The red flag area, the most likely red flag area, I kind of highlighted with that orange circle there. So the best combination of strongest winds and everything's kind of along that corridor, kind of that diagonal from southwest to northeast to the central part of the area there. That's where the winds will be strongest and the relative humidities will be lowest. So 20 to 30 miles an hour, there's a little question as to where the surface low pressure system sets up. Some of the guidance is not as strong in the winds in the north as others. So there's a little question about exactly how strong the wind ends up being. So that's kind of the thing we'll be watching. Everything else looks pretty much in line. It's going to be very low RH, and the winds will be southwest, and it'll be warm. So it's just a question of exactly how strong they end up being. Here's depressing slide number 1 to 7 day rainfall forecast. You can see where the hurricane's going, I think, and nothing for us as there has not been for a while now. Depressing slide number 2 8 to 14 day outlook looking beyond this next week. Not looking for any big signals for rain there as well. So that's not looking too good. Looking at the drought monitor here, you can kind of see the areas that are really the worst is that southwest corner, Smith County, Randall County, southern parts of Oldham and Potter, and then kind of along Highway 60. There is, and then up in Cimarron County as well. The areas that got the most summer rain, right in about there, are just holding out of being in the drought categories, but it's closing in pretty fast. There may be a little bit of greenness still showing up there. If you get outside of that area, especially in the southwest corner, it is very dry, very low on the percentiles for the energy release component, which is kind of a measure of dryness. So those areas that are in those drought categories, especially in the orange and red, are very dry and very ready to burn as far as the fuels go. Not quite as bad in the north central. And that's continuing to worsen. And we had spoke to, or there was some chat going on with Brad Smith, the Texas Forest Service, and he was saying that the curing is rapidly, there's some rapid drying going on right now because it's the pattern we've been in for the last couple of weeks is continual lower relative humidities and everything. So that's what I got for you guys today. Unfortunately, no good news on the rainfall front, and we'll be watching that fire weather.